Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. Indeed, I'm bringing back my salutations. Xbox can't steal that from me forever. And the reason I'm bringing back the salutations is because I'm feeling pretty good about the conversation we're about to have. I don't like to gas myself up or anything, but I actually wrote a little bit of a script for this video. And that's usually when you know I mean business, because I'm more of like a bullet point guy, just have that conversation. But I think this one requires deeper analysis. We're talking about the passage of information, and it involves my favorite gaming franchise, Fallout, which it has been claimed that a new Fallout game, Fallout 5 specifically, has been greenlit for production. The question is where, why, how, and I think I've provided a lot of good answers, or at the very least a lot for you all to think about here and now. So hopefully you find this entertaining but also educational. Let me know your thoughts on what's going on with Fallout down below, but before we begin anything else, a quick word from today's sponsor. We do have more to talk about, but first I want to tell you a bit about Mecha Break. For those unaware, Mecha Break is a free-to-play third-person mech shooter featuring high-speed combat and dynamic battles. And players are going to get access to 12 strikers day one. This is everything from different playstyles like the brawler, the sniper, support, and in total players can choose from 15 unique strikers to suit their combat style. Now, what I really am excited about when it comes to Mecha Break is how it's trying to fit so many different modes that other games are doing into one. So for example, like this is a hero shooter. It's a 6v6 hero shooter. At the same time, it's got 3v3 deathmatch and also their own unique mode called Mashmac, which is their take on the extraction genre. So whatever you want to dive into, I think Mecha Break has an answer for you, but it doesn't really stop there. They also have like great looking customization. They have stunning visuals, but also you can design your mech with 100+ parts and paint. You can customize your pilot's appearance. So what are you waiting for? Mecha Break is available now on Steam. It's available on Windows PC via the Xbox app. It's also an Xbox console exclusive, so you can check it out there. And it's coming to more platforms later on. If you're interested, just click the link in the description down below, and shout out to Mecha Break for sponsoring today's video. Okay, diving straight into it, we have the headline from Insider Gaming. Microsoft canceled Blackbird to focus on Fallout, it is claimed. In the latest episode of the Xbox 2 podcast, Jez Corden spoke about Microsoft's decision to cancel ZeniMax Online Studios' Project Blackbird MMO that had been in development for years. According to Corden, the decision to cancel the game was a situation where Microsoft had to decide if they wanted to continue spending money on a game that may or may not be competing with games like World of Warcraft, or would their money be better suited focusing on an established franchise. Quote, "From what I heard, it was a case of trade-offs, and that the program to expand Fallout 5 and just Fallout in general, that's where they've decided to make the investments and where the money will be translated into more of a surefire win," end quote, Corden said. He added that he's been told Fallout 5 has been greenlit for full production while openly wondering if a new studio could work on a new Fallout game. It's worth mentioning, however, that Corden says he doesn't have enough information for a full story on where things stand with Fallout or if they would form a new team to work on the next game in the series. The real question is, who is working on it? As we'll talk about in a little bit with comments from Chris Avallone, we're not so sure it's actually going to be Obsidian Entertainment, but this is the part of the story I want to stick with for a little bit, because following up this information, Jason Schreier, who reported directly on Project Blackbird, wrote the following: Xbox didn't lay off thousands of people so they can move those resources to new projects. They laid off thousands of people to cut their overall fiscal year budget. So now we have two really great reporters who have been verified time in, time out, just excellent track records, disagreeing with one another. This is a tough one. So there's really three ways I think you can go about this. The first, Xbox is just known to circulate rumors to sustain hype for their product or even help recover it. And I'm extremely suspicious of the timing of both the Fallout rumors, but also Banjo-Kazooie breaking a week after tragic management was exposed. An individual is clearly in many people's ears, and since insider scoops are the business model for many outlets, any verifiable information is good information, and I get why it'd be shared. The second way I'm thinking about this is both are correct. Jez has proven to be correct time in, time out, and has very good connections within Xbox. Jason is also obviously very well connected with his reporting. Jez was talking about a situation involving Blackbird, and it seems like Jason was refuting it by talking about Xbox as a whole. Now, to me, it's tough to say when you are staring down the pipe at an $80 billion AI investment, plus budget cuts and projects in development hell, that there weren't multiple whys to this situation. Like, why did this happen? It wouldn't surprise me if Jason's why and Jez's why were both true at the same time. Number three, and this is the tough conversation to have because I do have deep respect for both of them. In the case of Jez, I consider Jez a good friend. No one really knows what they're talking about at this point. And as such, information is being obfuscated. Not to the fault of either Jez or Jason, by the way, because some people think, for example, Jez runs defense for Xbox. Some think Jason has an axe to grind and hides information within his reports, and I do think you can look around and see why people would feel that way. One such example for Jason is how Blackbird in his report was set to release in 2028, yet True Achievements reports 2027, but then delayed to 2028. And I think that's a huge piece of the story that plays a massive role into Xbox's decision-making here involving Blackbird, perhaps even creating a level of rationale to that decision. But at the same time, Xbox leadership is understandably being demonized by the entire industry for completely mismanaging multiple projects. Jez is a product of timing. Like, just when he comes out with very optimistic Xbox reports or, hey, this is happening, it's oftentimes when things are very doom and gloom and it just doesn't resonate well with the audience. So those are 3 ways you could think about it. But me, I'm going to propose a 4th way on how I've really been thinking about it. And it's simply this. I think Xbox is 100% floating these rumors out there to stabilize the audience a little bit. Like, especially when things start to make their way to me as someone who's not an insider. When they start to make their way to me, that's when my alarm bell goes up because I'm like, you're telling me something? Okay, yeah, you really want to get the message out. But like, again, insider reporting is not my business. Again, though, the timing is just too suspicious for me not to feel this way. And I do believe Jez and Jason are both connected to the why of this situation, but I don't believe anyone actually knows what the hell is happening from the top to the bottom, except maybe Microsoft leadership. I say maybe for that because I don't even think Xbox knows what the hell is going on in their own business. So why would anyone on the outside, even trusted reporters, know? I also believe that both their sources leaking this information to these two clearly have their own interests in mind. For example, I'll lean into things I have been told, not the actual content, but the fact that I have been told a lot of things about Project Blackbird from multiple ZeniMax Online Studios employees. I know for a fact they are very pissed off at Microsoft leadership there. Very, very angry. Jason's reporting of Blackbird completely supports that angle. And I mean, how could you not get pissed off reading how Phil Spencer couldn't put the controller down while playing Blackbird, yet his management team shut down that very game that he seemed to love? And as for Jez, his connection is someone very high up at Xbox who has the brand's interest at mind. I mean, how could you not think with how much contact Jez has with the Xbox community and just insider reporting in general that this source isn't drip feeding very specific info to him? So I don't blame either for reporting, but I think taking it at face value and blaming either of the reporters for the situation we're in right now really isn't the answer. It's about questioning who the source is, which none of us know, and if that source is even well connected unto themselves. So yes, I know this is like a Fallout video, but we really have to deeply analyze the information here because it tracks years back to how we even got to this point. What do I mean by that? If we're in a trade-off situation now. We're talking about Xbox owned by Microsoft and trade-offs, and to me, that is some indie publisher energy. Look, I'll use myself as an example. We've been pitching our game, and it's been going really well. We have a lot of interest, but we also have a lot of people who are just like, hey, this doesn't match our portfolio, or hey, we're not interested in this, or just clearly AI generated messages of just like, okay, no human could have written this, but all right, you're not funding our project, we got it. And that trade-off makes sense. A lot of indie publishers think about things like, hey, why would I fund we'll use $5 million figure. Why would we fund one $5 million project when we could fund 5 $1 million projects and have one of those go viral and explode? That's more efficient usage of our money. With Microsoft, though, and Xbox in turn, the vision we were really sold is kind of doing everything from a South of Midnight, a small project where player count and even sales feel like they don't matter as much, but everything as big as Call of Duty can exist here. This kind of flies in the face of that vision when you have to make a choice between the surefire bet of Fallout, but also something that's maybe newer and riskier, like a new MMO on the market in Blackbird. So when you look at this, I think it goes back to 2022 for me, maybe even a little bit earlier, where I feel like better management would have seen some issues that would have led to decisions being made then that still would have been tough, as I'll dive into, but those tough decisions being made now wouldn't have led to the spot we're in here, where you had to choose between two really good projects that probably both would have been profitable and good for the business. Just one would have taken longer to get over that line than the other, and that's obviously the MMO, but that doesn't mean it was the right decision. I really think you have to go back to 2022 to make that right decision. And I know what some people will say in response to this, just a hindsight 2020, and I get that, but that's not where we're at right now. I look at Redfall, right? Redfall and the initiative are things that probably should have been shut down sooner if better management was something Xbox was afforded. Now, yes, we would have been angry, and I'll call myself out. Like, I'm a huge Arcane fanboy. You think I wouldn't be at the front of the pack yelling at Xbox for canceling an Arcane game just after acquiring them? I mean, a lot of these canceled projects always sound greater on paper and in our heads than what they actually were. We don't have the ability oftentimes to see what stage they were at, what was happening behind the scenes to lead to the cancellation. We just usually get the report after the dust has settled. Arcane Austin, especially with Harvey Smith attached and also just Prey being their previous game, had Namesake attached to them where it would have made Xbox look bad if they canceled this project, no doubt about it. However, we know from emails that leaked from Phil Spencer that he was talking up Redfall like it'd be something great, and it's extremely apparent that Xbox leadership was not on top of this project as much as they should have been. And I mean, insider reports show that Arcane themselves were asking, hoping for this game to be canceled, especially after 75% of the original Prey team had left. But again, in fairness, no one wanted to hear that. Xbox fans wanted games, and I wouldn't be surprised if leadership thought the best choice was to give Redfall a chance, especially given how dry the content had been for today's standards. We didn't see anything happening in 2022 for Xbox outside of Grounded and Pentiment. So let's look at the initiative instead. I would not feel nearly as strong about the initiative if I didn't just see Perfect Dark last year. And that vertical slice, whether it was going to be just a small sample size or the full game, it still looked amazing to me. That is what I was sold. That said, myself and many others had fair concerns about the initiative when it was reported that over half of the original team that Xbox had built left the project before anything got off the ground. And this 7-year venture with nothing to show for it is the definition of a sunk cost fallacy. Again, I'm not denying we wouldn't have been angry about this too. If it's reported a game is in trouble in 2022 at Xbox, I imagine our stance then would have been like, you're Xbox and you should have given them more time. Why did you cancel this? You're always going to get the armchair game developers and publishers. The trick, however, is really simple. It should have been a decision made earlier, because maybe projects that should have been cut back in 2022 after you got Bethesda to greenlight a Fallout game could have been made then. Budget could have been afforded then. Now it's time to pony up. It's time to show results, and you've got to get Fallout out the door, which we'll transition into the Fallout part of this conversation in just a moment here. But that's where it gets really interesting, is that I don't think there was a really hard decision to make at first, but because they kicked the can down the road, this is where they're at. And so it's just as simple as just not announcing things early. I mean, PlayStation is in a very similar position to Xbox ever since they started buying up studios and investing in live service. It has been a disaster, but the difference is in many of those cases, we have never seen those games. And games that have been canceled sounded awful, like a live service God of War game at a remake studio. Like, that sounds terrible. When I don't cheer for project cancellations. When I heard that, I was like, thank God, that sounded awful. So that's where we're at with Xbox and the information surrounding Fallout. There really didn't have to be, in my opinion, a trade-off scenario, but we are here nonetheless. The trade-off is happening. And so what is that trade-off? I imagine many people are thinking, well, oh, it's going to go to Obsidian, as we discussed in our previous video. However, Chris Avellone, who formerly worked at Obsidian Entertainment and now is at Republic Games, I cannot wait to see what this man's working on, because the industry just desperately needs this man's pen back. Like, we need to remember what great video game writing was like. But nonetheless, Avellone jumped into the Fallout conversation, and he said the possibly New Vegas headline is overused to generate clicks for media sites to the point that it's mostly noise by now. By the way, I don't mean the above meanly. It's just over the years, I've seen the same claim by media so many times, but hey, I could be wrong, but from what I have heard, if it's happening, it ain't Obsidian. I know the rundown of their upcoming titles and franchises. Now, given Chris's time at Obsidian Entertainment, I would not be surprised in the slightest that this man has a very strong clue of what's going on there. Like, he was there from the beginning, did not seem to leave on great terms, to be fair, but I feel like he'd be well connected enough to kind of take this information and talk about it a bit. And the main way I wanted to approach this is, okay, we covered the information part first. We know the trade-off that exists, and now we're hearing from Avellone, okay, it might not be Obsidian Entertainment. I will say this personally. This would be a bit of a missed opportunity given how The Outer Worlds 2 is looking from the outside on a systems level. Maybe the game comes out and it doesn't deliver. I'm not trying to overhype it, but it just seems like between the radio and the skill system, all these RPG systems that Fallout is known for are very much alive and well in Obsidian Entertainment. It feels like, just in the terms of system building and time spent quickly getting a Fallout game off the ground, there is a big part of that already done at Obsidian. So it feels like it would just be, from the business angle, we can talk quality of games coming out recently from Obsidian separately in just a moment here, but in the terms of like systems ready to go, I feel like Obsidian would be able to easily inherit a Fallout project and greenlight that. Especially because after this year with The Outer Worlds 2, Avowed, and Grounded 2, I mean, Grounded 2 support will continue on, but 2 RPG teams are going to be free by the end of this year, so it would make a lot of sense to get them on something Fallout related from both a business and availability standpoint. So it just kind of added up. But trusting what Chris says here, like, okay, it's not Obsidian Entertainment. Who could it be then? And I've got some guesses, all from a very exciting set of them to a very terrifying set of them. So 5 in total is what I've got for you today. The first one is, I think, of inXile. I just think passing it to an Xbox Game Studios makes a lot of sense. And if you're Xbox, and I get like identifying talent just seems to be a really big problem over there for them. However, let's say this isn't in an ideal world a problem for them. You have one of the most brilliant minds that helped give birth to Fallout and Wasteland being the series that gave birth to Fallout, in Brian Fargo at inXile. You have Wasteland 3 as Wasteland gave birth to Fallout, and Wasteland 3 came out in 2020 and was absolutely phenomenal. I think one of the most overlooked RPGs, just tremendous spiderwebbing choice and consequence. So I feel like you have multiple studios that I'll get into in a couple seconds that are really able to bring to life the, we'll say, old school Fallout vibes, like Fallout 1 and 2, but more modernized. And I feel like, with inXile, is that tool set still available for Wasteland 3? Is all that tech still there? Because you basically have a Fallout game right there, man. Like, they could go and do it, I feel. At the same time, Clockwork Revolution is looking mighty nice. Don't do anything to jeopardize that thing. But I do feel like Fallout, Brian Fargo, a reunion there with the Wasteland 3 stuff is a match made in heaven. It's the same way when Xbox first bought Bethesda. I'm like, you have Obsidian and you have inXile. It would be a disaster unto itself to give neither of them this project. But this is in an ideal world, I guess, right? Xbox has shown that, to a fault now at this point, they will let the leash go incredibly long and let the creatives do their own thing. So now we look at Larian Studios. I know this sounds crazy, but Swen Vink did mention that there was interest in the Fallout franchise before Baldur's Gate 3. He said it was Baldur's Gate, it was Fallout, and it was Ultima. Now, I'm sorry, Ultima fans. I understand Swen is your only chance. But look, if we get a Larian Studios Fallout game, do you understand what this could mean? That like the best Fallout game of all time is on the horizon. That's what it would mean to me. Like, we're like Obsidian, sorry. Old school Fallout, sorry. Yes, my beloved Fallout 3, sorry. Like, that's where we're at. So if Larian could do it, that is the most ideal choice of them all. And they seem to want to work on Fallout. Granted, making Baldur's Gate 3 levels of money and working with someone else's IP and kind of identifying some of the struggles they had with Wizards of the Coast, I could also see a world where, Larian wants to take that money and make their own, say, a sci-fi IP, and then make Divinity Original Sin 3 alongside that. We know they're working on 2 games, but God, dude, if it was Fallout, God, I would lose my mind. Like, just absolutely another perfect fit. This would be, again, the ideal fit for me. Them or inXile, I'd lose my head. Obsidian would just be it makes sense. But if it's not Obsidian, these are the 2 I would love to see. The third, this is where we get into the muck a little bit. This is where we get into the less ideal. The third, 76 team. I mean, at a certain point, Fallout 76 is going to get into its Elder Scrolls Online bag, where it's a well-oiled machine. There's enough support teams attached to it. And those other Bethesda Game Studios members that are working on 76, who have a lot of Fallout content and Fallout experience, even if it's not the best Fallout, can go work on more Fallout. Again, this is me just thinking from the business mindset. I know it's not an exciting, sexy answer. And I, alongside many of you, would, if I saw a Fallout game announced and it's by them, go, oh, God almighty. Okay, here we're in for a ride. I'm right there with you. But this does seem like a potential thing that could happen. Just if you free up resources from 76 and you're outsourcing all of the work and the support that's going into this game so that that team can go work on a new Fallout project, that does make a lot of sense. And also familiarity with the creation engine, if they want to keep Fallout in there, that also could make a lot of sense. A fourth option for you, Virtuos. This reminds me a little bit of how Aspyr worked. Remember, Aspyr went ahead and made KOTOR, a little Switch remaster for that. Somehow, by the way, why aren't you on like PlayStation or Xbox. Like, you have back compat on Xbox, to be fair, but how is this not on PlayStation, especially when PlayStation wanted to remake as an exclusive KOTOR? I don't get it, but nonetheless, the work Aspyr did on really a Star Wars license, but in particular, Knights of the Old Republic, and porting it and touching both of those games up, and then failing to do so with KOTOR 2, might I add, and not having the restored content mod patched into it, which just bothers me to no end. But nonetheless, my personal ranting aside, you have a situation similar to Aspyr here with Virtuos, right? Where you kind of get grandfathered into the next big thing. So Virtuos works on Oblivion Remastered, carries most of the weight here for basically redoing Oblivion. You learn a lot working in the guts of that project. Okay, now we know the report is they're doing Fallout 3 Remastered next. So now you have all the tools, all the work, all the experience. What if you, instead of being, making Outer Worlds 2 Spacer's Choice Edition like you did for the first one, or doing remasters of Fallout or remasters of Elder Scrolls, you make your own game in that series? Again, not really advocating for it, because Virtuos has shown me that they are not the most technologically stable team, and I'm saying that as a Bethesda fan, so hopefully that carries some weight. But there is that experience there, and I'm just looking for trusted partnerships. Like, I don't think Xbox grabs this IP and looks beyond all of these studios into someone completely new. Owlcat would have been another pick of mine, but Owlcat's working on The Expanse. They're working on a ton of their own IP, a new Warhammer CRPG. So their hands are full. So there's only so many RPG teams available. And that goes into the last one here, the scariest one of them all, as far as I'm concerned, because all of these sound reliable enough to get a project out the door. But this last one is an idea myself, Lord Cognito, and many others proposed when Xbox bought Bethesda. And it was simply this: you make a new studio dedicated to Fallout games. Just like you have Halo Studios, you have a new team called The Vault. I don't know. And The Vault makes only Fallout games. That is a scary proposition if Halo is anything to go by, and given that it is a studio owned and built by Xbox, that's an even scarier proposition. Xbox showed with the initiative that they have no issue luring in world-class talent. Like, they got the creative director, for example, of the Wolverine game off of that project to come work on Perfect Dark. So even to this day, I feel like despite all the shit that's gone wrong for Xbox, they can lure incredible talent, but can they manage incredible talent? I mean, Xbox has the money. I'm sure they can get anybody, but can they manage it well? And when it involves my favorite IP in gaming, I get a little concerned about that, because again, I look at Halo, the thing that should be your Mario, should be the most well-managed, should not have reports coming out, especially in the latest project, that, oh, it's in trouble as well. Oh, it's in chaos as well. I'm like, how? After Halo Infinite, how? I look at the TV show for Halo. Oh my God, this was not good at all. And now got shut down before a third season, understandably so. So to have Xbox manage and build up a studio dedicated to Fallout games, sure, years ago, it was a dream come true. Nowadays, I'm way more trepidatious about it. I'm way more concerned about what that would look like. So I would rather hand it off to an established team that has familiarity with this brand, an Obsidian and an Exile, or really expert hands in the RPG category like a Larian. Obviously, we'll see, but the reality is here, the one thing we're not talking about, and I know this video is going on forever, but you know what this means to me. Fallout 5. Jez is saying it's a Fallout 5 that has been greenlit. And that's what Bethesda Game Studios said they were doing after Elder Scrolls 6. Elder Scrolls 6 can't be shelved, though. That's arguably more important than Fallout 5, and will arguably make more money than Fallout 5 if it's good. So Bethesda Game Studios is being forced to hand off their next mainline entry in the Fallout franchise? Or is Jez just saying Fallout 5 as in hey, it's just a new Fallout game? I don't know the answer to that. But if it is the next mainline entry and it's going beyond Bethesda Game Studios, I gotta wonder what Todd thinks of this, dude. I really gotta wonder about that sort of stuff. That was their next project after Elder Scrolls 6, but as I said when they first bought Bethesda, I feel like you just wrestle that thing from Bethesda and start greenlighting Fallout projects, but now they're doing it in a reactionary way where I wonder how it looks and how it feels. And if you are the next mainline entry, then I expect you to be a first-person shooter, which then complicates things even more, because I'm picking companies that are great for like spin-off opportunities, like a New Vegas style game where you're like canon and sort of mainline, but not like a numbered entry. But if someone else is getting Fallout 5, then I imagine it might be the 76 team, because at least you've got Bethesda Game Studios on the box. I don't know. It's really anybody's guess. There's a lot of good guesses out there, but that's all I've got for you today on Fallout. This update, as the title says, truly changes everything. So let me know what you think of the information we have on display here, where it's coming from, and who is your ideal Fallout team. Fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.